us. So I'm always starting with this big question that sometimes it's like overwhelming, but what is the biggest obstacle to innovation?
Yeah, that is a big question, and yeah. So my experience is basically having worked in large corporations for many years, right, and exactly trying to tackle what these obstacles. How do you make innovation run more smoothly in organizations? And especially, I spent 9 years at Lego with exactly trying to say, what is needed to make innovation really flow freely in an organization. And so of course there are many obstacles, both on a structural level, on a process level, governance, on a human level. But maybe some of the biggest obstacles that I've observed would be starting with sort of the number one, which is a lack of clear direction when it comes to innovation. It seems that many companies, they're super good at setting very clear strategies and direction for their existing business, but then when it comes to innovation, it's sort of more vague. It's like, yeah, we need to innovate, but nobody's really talking about more concretely, what is it that's relevant and interesting for us. So this about setting more clear direction, or as I call it, opportunity spaces, identifying clear opportunity spaces for the company. What is it that we should pursue? And it's a mix of sort of the internal context analysis, like what is our mission and purpose? Where do we want to take our company? With an external context analysis, what's changing in the world? What's happening? What are the consumers wanting and needing in the future? And where those two intersect and overlap, that is where you identify your opportunity spaces, right? And then you sort of need to make yourself a thought leader into that. The trick here is to build new capabilities, right, when you innovate. So that means you need to really sort of dive deep. And only when you do that, you start having a more clear point of view, which becomes a direction. Like, where is it that we need to take? What is the right path for us into these new spaces?
Yeah.
So that's the number one obstacle that I often see, that there's sort of a lack of that. And it's a discipline, right? It's a discipline around innovation and setting clear directions for it that ultimately should be owned by the C-suite, the executives, but often is pushed down to mid-level in the organization. You guys figure out what we should do. And then it's like, why is that not strategic? Why is that not the job of the CEO and the rest of the executive team? And it needs to become that, right?
Right. But you just mentioned that you worked in Lego, and Lego is perceived as a very innovative company in their domain, right? So
Yeah.
do you take what you learned there and trying to make something which is a bit similar to what you had in Lego? So what could you take from this experience to what you're doing right now?
Yeah, so absolutely. So they are very focused on creating very clear direction for innovation across the different levels of innovation, right? Because there's both the more incremental around the existing core, and then there's a more radical innovation where you're really exploring new territory. And depending on what level you're on, you need direction for each of these areas. It's not just enough that you have a direction for your incremental, and then when it comes to the more radical, it's sort of sporadic and all over the place. So, and I think that's one of the things that Lego really mastered is being very good at understanding what is changing in the world and where do we want to take our company, and how does that connect and match, and that helps then the design teams and the innovation teams having really clear paths. Of course, still not knowing exactly what is the experience, what's the product, what's the service. That needs to be explored. But they've carved out some very clear directions that's based on deep understanding and immersion into these areas, into these changes, and not just, some vague sort of guidance towards maybe blockchain.
Yeah.
But so not following the shiny objects, but really understanding deeply what this could become and how this could be relevant for the company in the future.
So I just imagine that Lego has these very creative people all around, but I don't know, it's just my imagination. Do they really hire more creative, open-minded people, or it's just, the PR?
Well, I think it's hard to compare companies, but definitely my experience is that it is a highly creative company, and very much because, of course, tied to its product and services. This is about creating creative experiences for kids. So
Yeah.
naturally, you're very sort of invited to be creative, to think creatively. And Lego is hosting this one day every year, which they call the play day, and it is to sort of take their own medicine and say one day every year we all need to go training how to play more, how to be more playful in our approach to creating and to running the business. So I would say it is a fairly creative organization, and definitely a great place to work.
Yeah. And do you think that being creative or creativeness is so important for innovation, or just because this is their domain? And if I would have been like a banking or insurance company, it will not be as relevant.
I think for innovation to really thrive, we need more creativity in all organizations. And this is not just about what does it take to, invent future products and experiences and services. This is also about, the most foundational thing, which is what does it take for human beings to thrive in an organization in the future? Human beings that are being more and more educated, that is more and more understanding, what the good life is all about, and therefore also demanding that their work life is in balance and is in tune and is not making them burn out. So therefore, organizations will have to invest more in how do we create a more creative environment where people feel, a deeper passion for the things that they're doing, because there is a creative freedom, but there's also the tools and the support and coaching for you as an individual to be a little more creative. And of course, creativity can come in all sizes and forms and shapes. It's not that everybody ends up being, these super creative artists that are doing all kinds of things, but it's being creative in each of your area, in how to solve problems, in how to connect with other people, in how to see, connecting dots, and seeing the bigger picture of things. And I think that's where all organizations, regardless of industry, can benefit from people being a little more creative and feeling that creativity is sort of in the fibers of the organization.
Yeah. So you mentioned like